especially if you're a founder, that the most important thing is to survive because the industry is super fast paced. You're always going to see maybe unexpected opportunities that come up, but do you have enough patience and runway to stick it out and eventually get to build what you want?
This material is for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide accounting, legal, or tax advice, or investment recommendations, or an official statement of Presto or its affiliates.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Presto Research Podcast. I think it's been nearly a month since our last kind of interview style episode, but we're excited to be back. And today, as usual, I'm joined by my boss, Peter.
Hello.
And we have another very special guest today as well, Annabelle, founder of Altius. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me today.
Yep. So as usual, I think let's start with your story. How did you first get into crypto? And I know you were with Ember for a couple of years. So what ultimately inspired you to start build Altius?
Yeah, that's definitely a trip down the memory lane. I first started full-time in crypto around 2018. I made the move from TradFi to DeFi directly back then. I was FX derivatives trader in New York, and through alumni connections and just New York social connections, I met the team building AirSwap, one of the first generation DEXs on top of Ethereum back in 2017 and 2018, and thought that, wow, that's a very different way of thinking about financial rails. And that feels like the next frontier for fintech. We had fintech 1.0, especially I grew up in China and saw the evolution of all the payments app and neobanks. So I really thought that, okay, that's the future of finance. Really took the red pill there and started working on DeFi. And that was before Uniswap, before we had the AMM models. So I would say the initial experience is fascinating, but I realized that we had two major gaps. So first is on the liquidity front. DeFi was so nascent. There was lack of market makers who are willing to trade on chain. Most people, I think, Amber, Presto, a lot of the folks included were trying to figure out how to even trade on centralized crypto exchanges back then. And the second, of course, is the infrastructure gap. The chain itself, Ethereum, in terms of gas fees, congestion, a lot of the surrounding infrastructure around wallets, how do you onboard, key management, etc. Given my background in trading, I decided to focus on solving the more liquidity gap. That's why I decided to move back to Asia, join forces with the Amber Group founders, and started focusing on building Amber for the next 6 years, really focusing on providing liquidity, not just on centralized venues, but also increasingly so on decentralized venues with the DeFi summer and everything else that came after. And fast forward to 2024, after working on more liquidity provisioning focuses for 6 years, and with the advent of all the Bitcoin, Ethereum ETFs, all the Wall Street players are coming into, all the institutions are coming into crypto. I feel like we've entered into a new paradigm. So I wanted to then take a step back and think through what are the other gaps that we should fill as industry. So I started to look a lot more in terms of blockchain infrastructure. How do we power the next generation of applications, whether it is trading, whether it is payment, whether it is social. And that's what led me to deep dive of high performance blockchain infrastructure, which ultimately became Altius.
Wow. That's quite a journey. And I think you have a very impressive team. Like how did you manage to assemble such a talented team at Altius?
Well, I would say I feel very lucky. It really was in the around Q1 of 2024. I saw sort of the landscape and paradigm shift, started doing some research. But I come from a math background. I'm not a distributed systems engineering guru. So I happened to be in Hong Kong for a business trip and ran into a friend of mine from Carnegie Mellon. He worked at Hudson River Trading before, also been in crypto for a while, and mentioned that his previous team lead is looking to dabble into blockchain infra, almost like the next challenge after you've worked on a very specific sort of high frequency, high performance infrastructure at a more centralized platform. What's the next challenge? And it's probably applying the same principles to work on a even more decentralized architecture, more decentralized database. Really through luck, and I think just good timing that I got connected to my co-founder and CTO, Anit, who spent 15 years at Hudson River Trading, and also previous experience at Silicon Valley, Web2 companies before. So we started looking even deeper down the blockchain stack. Initially, I was looking more around high performance infrastructure for perhaps high frequency trading on chain. But we started brainstorming and realized that the architecture that we wanted to build can actually be applied to more general purposes to support different use cases on chain. Like I said before, whether it is for trading specifically or maybe for payment, for anything else, anything that requires more transactions or more volume, that's fully on chain, then there is a need for a more performant architecture behind the scene. So yeah, and then we kept iterating on Altius and the stack and the architecture, and we've been building it ever since.
Yeah, that's a good story. So I mean, you already kind of touched on the kind of things that you guys are working on, but maybe just step back a little bit, and for the people who've never heard of Altius before, in the simplest terms, do you think you can describe what it is that you're building and the problem that you're trying to solve?
I typically use maybe two analogies. One is in some form, I'd like to think of ourselves as similar to AWS. So in terms of how before AWS, the startups that wants to run its own database infrastructure will have to probably build its own physical database data center, and it's hard to maintain, it's costly. But with AWS, you can quickly spin up a cloud server and pay per usage. And that really led to a much easier setup for startups, especially. So what we're trying to do is make it easier for either existing blockchain builders or dApp builders to build their customized infrastructure without spending years or a ton of money to rebuild the architecture. We can offer it almost as a service, and we abstract away the complexity of managing the backend, optimizing the architecture, and they can just have off-the-shelf high-performance blockchain tech. Another, maybe a non-technical way of thinking about this, my team like to use the analogy that we're almost like the F1 engine inside the car, and that could be applicable to put inside different cars so we can accelerate the performance of the car without needing to focus too much on the hardware side. Maybe you can upgrade the engine without having to say upgrade entire aerodynamic designs, the tires, etc., and have more low-hanging fruit and performance improvement in terms of what you can achieve.
Yeah, and how's that different from some of the existing kind of scalability solutions out there, or some other types of similar solutions that exist? How would you differentiate yourself?
I would say there are a few key design principles that we decided on day one. One is we're taking a approach where we're not inventing or building new primitives. So we're not building a new programming language. We're not building a new consensus algorithm. We're not rebuilding a new VM. We are here to optimize and improve existing architectures. So there's less impact on the developer experience. They don't have to learn a new language. They don't have to move everything to a complete new architecture. They can continue to run as is, but just enjoy the benefit of the underlying architecture being more performant and faster. So that's one. And second, I would say we took a more flexible and modular approach. So instead of saying, we've have this core architecture, we're going to build it into our own general general purpose chain, and you have to come to our ecosystem to be able to benefit from this. Instead, we build it into a modular stack where we can empower different blockchain ecosystems with it. And it is actually a more complex and more challenging way to approach it from a technical and perhaps go-to-market perspective. But I do believe that it's more sustainable in terms of building our own chain and kind of competing for the same developer pool. And we've seen the evolution of a lot of the super apps or the flagship apps on certain ecosystems. They realize that they still have the need to further customize their own blockchain stack to further customize for what they want to achieve on the front end. So that's when they're going to start investing and build their own app chain. And we want to really empower those use cases.
Right. And I remember reading that your solution is more VM agnostic. So could that be, I guess, also another kind of unique point about your?
Yeah, so that's really the flexibility point where we are here to really improve any blockchain or any blockchain ecosystem out there. So we're not just building a framework for EVM. We can expand that to be compatible with SVM or MoveVM or maybe other architectures that people want to use.
I think you kind of touched upon on the developer side. How about the end user side who's using it? Can they actually feel the difference in terms of speed? And is there like a benchmark or target that you guys are aiming for? Or?
Yeah, yes. I mean, that's certainly the goal. The way I envision it is the end users on different blockchain ecosystems that are probably powered by Altius can feel a concrete difference in terms of UI UX. Faster, so lower latency, cheaper, and because the chain can process more gas or higher throughput per block or per second, but they don't need to know exactly how that happened because Altius is here to abstract away the complexity and just really deliver that benefit to the blockchain ecosystems and indirectly to the end users. And in terms of benchmark, so been building for a little over 6 months. And our first implementation is focused around EVM, just because there's a much bigger developer and application market share and mind share. And if we benchmark against the most performant Ethereum execution client, which is the Rust Ethereum client, we can achieve around 5x improvement. And in terms of throughput, and in different scenarios, so for example, I think people care mostly about, if I want to do a more complex transaction. So instead of a native transfer, but what about a Uniswap transaction where we might be, doing a couple of complex trades. So we can also improve probably currently 2 to 4x in terms of more complex DeFi transactions on chain as well. And the goal really is to further customize for different use cases, whether it is more on-chain trading, it's AMMs, maybe it's club, or it could be payment or settlement. So we're at the stage where we're exploring the different use cases that people want to see.
Right. And you went live with your service a few months ago, or like when did you start offering the service?
I would say we're probably in a private beta right now. So we've spoken to different blockchain ecosystems and builders, developers there to share our design, our code base privately. But the goal is to open source some of the standard stack, so other developers who are more experts at building can use it directly off the shelf as well.
Got it. And then in terms of a roadmap, like what are the things that we should be watching out for to follow the progress of your, of Altius Labs?
Yeah, well, as we continue to build and optimize the core architecture and the core product, which is the Altius stack that delivers high performance at the blockchain execution layer, we are also working on a few close-knit partnerships or integrations with different blockchain ecosystems. Some are the EVM architecture, and some are actually more app chain type, where the applications notice or identify certain improvements they need, whether it is for example, for a perp dex, they care about obviously the trading UI UX, the latency there, the throughput, how many orders you can process, and also from a user UI UX perspective, the fast deposit in terms of withdrawal and how can we enable that. So hopefully, the current roadmap is before the end of the year, you should be able to hear a lot more from us in terms of the case studies, the partnerships, and next year, hopefully we'll see some of this going live on their mainnet as well.
I think it might be too early to kind of discuss about this, but so are you guys charging the dApps for the using or
No, charging the underlying blockchains.
underlying the blockchain?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. That's the level where the integration happens. Yeah. So for a user, there shouldn't be anything additional. It should just be for the dApp builders or the users on either end, they should just see the immediate performance upgrade of the underlying chain.
I think kind of shifting gears a bit. I think now it's everything kind of, if you look at CT and everything, the narrative kind of comes and goes in, I guess, like a month or even a week. So I was kind of, as a infra builder, which kind of takes longer than other like consumer apps and stuff. How do you kind of deal with this short-term hype and as an infrastructure builder?
It's a great question. I think I do have the benefit of experiencing multiple cycles. So a lot of the times these things that do come with certain cyclicality. And I've seen good builders that focus on their long-term vision. And even though it took them maybe across multiple cycles to eventually get there, and they're able to really have meaningful impact over the long term, or teams that maybe overly chase the short-term narratives. It's a really difficult balance, I think, to balance, especially if you're in the middle of it. But the way I'm thinking about it, we are here to build not just for the next year or two, but we're here to build for the next decade. And what could we do to make the most impact? And our team comes from institutional background, comes from trading, comes from infrastructure. And how do we do what we do best to provide the most value over the long run? And of course, there are going to be short-term narratives and noises. So it's important to try to distinguish what trends are here to stay and maybe what's more a fad. But our goal is to be able to power all the different use cases that we see now, maybe that will happen in the next decade. We're not here to judge why do users want certain things, right? If we see meme coin or prediction market or any trading, if there's demand, it makes sense. And we're here to understand what we can do on the infrastructure side to better empower these. Can we make the chains more performant? Can we make it more secure and really cater to what the users need? And I think I'm really excited to see what are the other use cases or narratives that's going to come out. Is it around payment? Is it around AI? Is it around other things? I wouldn't say we're experts in all of those areas, but hopefully by focusing on what we do best, providing the infrastructure, empowerment, and the value there, we get to then work on the different sectors or the different use cases eventually.
Yeah, I guess one of the benefit of being infrastructure player, I guess, would be because you get a chance to see what's happening across all spectrum, and because there are various use cases that requires all these infrastructures that you're building. So I know you said that you try to be open-minded and try to service everybody, but if you were to pick, based on what you've seen so far, certain trends or segments of the industry that looks very promising over the 2 to 3 years, what areas would that be?
I mean, that's a great question. And I would say I'm definitely biased in this just because I've spent a lot of time looking at trading and it's proven, right? It's a core need, not just in crypto, but I think, in any markets. So I think trading itself would be a core need, whether it is people trading for speculation or maybe people trading for because putting the FX head on, sometimes people really do have the need to just transact and swap things. And so that's maybe more sort of payment related. So I'm definitely more familiar and more interested in these use cases. But if you think about financial applications or trading in a broader sense, then payment could be powering so many different use cases. Maybe it is social, or maybe it is InfoFi, maybe it is something else, gaming, that we probably have looked at but haven't taken off before. So I would say paying closer attention to the more immediate use cases, which is trading, and we know that it is going to stay in some form or another. But at the same time, looking at the derivatives of it to see what else can make sense.
Yeah, so kind of wrapping up, I mean, you've been in this industry since 2017, so I think I can call you OG in this space.
What's the definition
I
of
think,
OG these days?
I feel
What's
like everyone is different, because like OG for me is people who like entered the space in 2012, 2013. But I'm not showing my age here. Then obviously we put in our time in this industry. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's
I,
quite interesting.
I feel like joining a DeFi startup in 2017 could be OG, right? It was before DeFi summer, so
It's true.
yeah, but but I guess yes, from DeFi to from Amber to currently building Altius, like what's like the lesson that you learned, and also lesson that you want to give to someone who's actually trying to build in this crypto space?
Yeah, well, lots of lessons learned through the years, mostly through mistakes I've made in the past, or maybe I've seen others make in the past. I'll try to boil down to maybe a few key points. I think first of all is understanding, especially if you're a founder, that the most important thing is to survive. Because the industry is super fast paced, you're always going to see maybe unexpected opportunities that come up. But do you have enough patience and enough runway and everything to stick it out and eventually get to build what you want to build. One thing I wanted to mention about AirSwap, the first DeFi project I worked on, we were probably a little bit too ahead of the time. We're trying to build a Uniswap X before we figure out how to bootstrap liquidity through Uniswap AMM, and then moving to RFQ model, right? But if we had continued to build on it, maybe it would have been a different story. So, and then we've seen cases where the builders really went through the difficult winters and continue building and are able to take off when the market timing's right. So I think the first goal is to really stick to what you want to build, stick to your passion, and make sure you can survive. And then I'm sure there will be the right opportunities for you.
Yep, I think that's it for today. Thank you, Annabelle, for sharing your insight, and see you all next week.
Thanks again for having me.
Bye-bye.